What is up, BookTube? It is me. It is Monty. I am back again, once again at the start of the video. I have some tea. I don't know how long this video is going to be, because I have a lot of thoughts and opinions. So, last week, in case you were living under a rock, Iron Flame, Rebecca Yarros' highly anticipated sequel follow-up to Fourth Wing, was released. I initially bought this book just to hold up in the video because my Books A Million did not have a copy in stock until like Friday. No, Saturday. Yesterday was Saturday. Well, they had copies in stock. They were like on hold for people. I don't know. I didn't ask. It was on the shelf. I don't want to talk to the people. But I had it to hold up. But I think I'm just going to wind up putting the book cover up instead. So it doesn't matter. Hopefully, if you were anticipating this book, you were able to like get a copy because it's been the Wild West. And also, if you were able to get a copy, hopefully it's not one of the misprints. Listen, I've been in the bookish streets now for a really long time, watching content, making content entirely too long. Coming up on a decade. Pretty sure next year is like the actual 10-year anniversary of like my first video. But I was watching content since at least 2011, 2012. So we're out here doing like entirely too long. So I've seen like, copies of books have, messed up editions, like maybe they have like the actual like wrong book printed into the like the cover might say, I don't know, The Secrets of the Woods, and inside is like the Bible. Like I've seen situations like that, like not common, but like I've seen it. But I feel like Instagram and TikTok is just overtaken with people who have either like their edges are flaking off, which I've never seen anybody do. But also like maps are upside down. People's have entire books printed upside down. They have Fourth Wing on like the actual, I had to double check my copy and I started seeing this, but they have like a Fourth Wing instead of Iron Flame on the actual like embossed spine of the book. So Red Tower, I don't know what they were doing. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know if they were working with the press for the first time, but some of these copies are truly, I mean, again, like nothing that I've seen is like completely unreadable. Except some of them are unreadable. Like if the book is just printed upside down, like sure, it's annoying, but you can read that. Like you can just, physically turn your book. You'll be fine. But there are people who have like missing pages. They have duplicate pages. Like they'll have like hundreds of pages just printed into the book without pages that should be there. So like some of them I think do make the book unreadable. Luckily, like I said, my copy seems to be fine, but also I'd already finished and completed the book before I purchased this copy. So even if this copy had mistakes in it, I already listened to the audiobook. I got it from the library. And so the good people of the state of Kansas made sure I had the book. Now, speaking of the audiobook, it has also come to my attention the past couple of weeks. Well, I guess, yeah, weeks. Because before the book came out, I was vaguely aware that apparently Rebecca Yarros is saying some, I think the streets are saying she's pro-Israel at a time where that's a really wild take as out here just indiscriminately bombing in Gaza. Like let's be for fucking serious for a second here. It's very wild. I also think it's wild to be to have that position. I guess it's actually not that wild. So many, I guess, like for the past month now, because it's the 12th, so a month hasn't changed since this latest round of attacks happened. But what was it? Oh, before that, like earlier, like in October when, things were fresh and new, we had this whole wave of people talking about, you guys read the revolutionary fiction and you were like, yes, I'm pro-revolution. But like these authors are like weird. And I feel like Rebecca Yarros is very much in that situation, as we'll get to in Iron Flame and the actual plot of this book and the characters that we're following. It's just very wild, I think, to have written. Again, it makes sense. It's not groundbreaking. She's not the only person to do this, but it's like you wrote that book and then you want to go be pro genocide. Okay, you just want to do Rebecca. So that's the thing. Does make sense to me, but she's out here living her best life, I suppose. It also came to my attention this time around. This could have been a conversation people were having during Fourth Wing, but when Fourth Wing came out, like I wasn't part of that conversation. I wasn't really paying attention to the book. I read it months after it came out in June. And I think I read that just for the patrons. Speaking of which, the patrons do get an Iron Flame reading vlog, kind of. I included it in their monthly vlog, so my initial impressions are all captured for the patrons to see. So that's happening over there. But here, we're gonna get a nice little review moment. So apparently the names of the dragons are not just like invented words out of thin air, which makes sense. I find that, most fantasy is coming from somewhere. In this case, I believe that they are Scottish Gaelic words. And so even though I listen to the audiobook and you think you listen to the audiobook, you're going to get correct pronunciations. But I'm pretty sure that the audio narrators got their pronunciations from Rebecca, and Rebecca does not pronounce these things properly. So, hate that for me, hate that for you. But that is to say that I also am not going to pronounce these dragons' names correctly. So I might just refer to them through their human, which is really just Violet and, and Zayden, just because I feel like their dragons are like the most important. But it just come to my attention that all the names in this book are probably, and then the school college, the war college, it's also probably a Scottish Gaelic word because it looks similar to the names of the dragons. I'm sure that they're not pronounced correctly. There's some other words sprinkled into like the chapter headings that are also probably Gaelic, that are probably, or Gallic. I'm pretty sure that those are not the same thing. And so those are probably also not pronounced correctly in the audiobook. But again, I have no way of knowing. Let me take that back. There is a way of knowing, but I simply don't. But also the chapter heading and the words that might be Gallic in there are probably not as important as the actual character names and the character names of the dragons or whatever. So all of those things out of the way. Also, like I said, I did eventually purchase a copy, so I did financially compensate Rebecca Yarros for her time and attention. Which again, as she is, pro-genocide, you can make the decision if you want to do that or not. I feel like as a person who has an entire shelf dedicated to Sarah J. Maas, I'm really not the person to be telling people not to purchase authors who support Israel. We are now going to talk about Miss Iron Flame. So after all of that lovely preamble, let's get into this book. This book picks up a little bit after the events of Fourth Wing. So at the end of Fourth Wing, spoilers, obviously, going forward as well. If you don't want spoilers, here's the quick rundown of the thoughts. It's an okay book. Here's the thing. I don't think The Fourth Wing is a good book. And I don't think that Iron Flame is a good book. I don't know if I would classify either as bad. I think that they just kind of exist. They are very middling and average. And I don't think that one is an improvement upon the other. I don't think that either of them is outstanding in any particular way. I feel like they definitely read like books that, to me, both of these books do kind of like tug on a nostalgic feeling in that they're easy to get through. They have a lot of possibilities. You know what I mean? Like there are options for this world to expand in a myriad of ways, and for a better, I don't know if better is the right word, but a more ambitious author maybe to kind of tug on some of those strings a little bit more, or in a way that feels more thought out, in a way that I don't want to say works better, but just does. But I do think that for someone who is attempting to get into fantasy, I do think that this is probably a better series. Better again, I don't know if I want to use that word, but I do see how this could get someone into the regular fantasy genre, because I do think that we need to have a distinct difference, I think, between romantasy and fantasy romance. I think that fantasy romance has a plot, has, a structure outside of a romance. And so much of what I've seen about the conversation around Iron Flame is that like it's not romantasy, which I think is it is a distinction with a difference. I think that there was a time where, or maybe to actually people who are, fans of the genre or whatever, I do think that, as someone who is not heavily invested in either side of romantasy or fantasy romance from the outside, it just looks like romantasy is becoming the new word for fantasy romance to make it, it's shorter. It's a portmanteau. People love a portmanteau. But I feel like they are distinctly different setups. I think that in a romantasy novel, you probably might, if it's a series, you're not going to get the couple together in the first book, because like the entire series is their romance. Like, sure, other things may be happening, but it doesn't matter because we're here for the romance. And fantasy romance, I think there is a couple, but the couple can get together in the first book or the second book of whatever series it is, because there are elements of the story that are not singularly reliant upon them being a couple, being together. Like, they can be together. They can be a romantic element. It can even be a big part of the story. But the story itself that we are telling is not a romance. You know what I mean? And so I feel like Rebecca Yarros is writing fantasy romance, and other authors are writing romantasy. Like that's just it is what like I would say that A Court of Silver Flames is romantasy because while there is a plot of Nesta, forging relationships with other women and loving herself a little bit more, and Cassian being there and doing things, it's still Nesta and Cassian getting together, loving each other, being together. It is what it is. Uh, the Throne of Glass series, I would just say, is a regular fantasy. But if you wanted to say from Air of Fire to Kingdom of Ash that it's fantasy romance, okay, congratulations. Like, there is a plot. We're following a character attempting to achieve their aims, but we are also seeing her romantic pursuits, and there's heavy attention focused in on that. And so I think that it is important to have that distinction because I think that Iron Flame, again, has things that it's doing outside of Violet's relationship with Xaden. And I think that people who read Fourth Wing, and this isn't anything against them because I do think that the publishing, Red Tower Books, Rebecca Yarros, who is a romance author, all were attempting to market that book in a romantasy way. Everyone went into that book for the relationship between Xaden and Violet, and all anyone talks about is the relationship between these two individuals. Even though to me there is much more going on, there is other things happening in Fourth Wing that make it just a more general fantasy romance. But I will say that because Xaden and Violet are in the same place at the same time, it's easier to, I think, give outsized importance to those two characters getting together, even if we are also trying to navigate this war college that is trying to kill Violet at every turn. And in Iron Flame, I think because Xaden is an older character by like a year, or I guess technically 2 years, right? Because he's, graduated and gone, it forces them to not be in the same room at the same time. And I do think that it impacts the pacing a little bit, like we're bouncing around in the college, outside the college, in the college, outside the college. There's a lot of bouncing around that's happening, but whatever. It is what it is. Again, I think to me, it leans more into the fantasy, putting the fantasy in fantasy romance and not so much the romance in romantasy. You know what I mean? Like, again, very subtle difference, very, we're like pulling hairs. Is that the, is that the expression? Or splitting hairs. We're splitting hairs or whatever, but I do think that in this case, the hair is important to be split. So in Iron Flame, we pick up a little bit after the end of Fourth Wing. At the end of Fourth Wing, Violet had been like knocked unconscious, or she had like been poisoned or whatever. And in the beginning of Iron Flame, we were seeing her come to. We're seeing her be rehabilitated very briefly, and reconnecting with her brother again very briefly. But I think if there was one, I think, major issue with this book, it's that we went back to the war college. So at the end of the book, our characters were, or not all of our characters, but most of, or some of Violet's squad. Was it actually her squad, or was it just Violet? I think it was Violet and the Marked Ones. So Violet and the Marked Ones had got split off, and they got sent off to, like, this death mission during the war games. And so technically we're like at the tail end of her first year, but like the year technically wasn't over. And so she goes back at the beginning of Iron Flame, even though I think that that's kind of I don't want to say like the wrong move, but I think that is kind of where the book, to me, makes the biggest mistake. At the end of Fourth Wing, we were let in on the fact that the people who fly the Garfens are not like as bad as we thought they were, that the rebellion maybe has a point to be made, and that Violet's brother was not dead. Like, there's a lot of things that are happening. Also, the Venin are like maybe coming for the continent. Like, the Venin is coming for the people. So is bad. The Wyverns they're writing. They're not just fairy tales. Like, there's a lot of things that are happening outside the war college that were revealed to Violet. And I mean, the Marked Ones already knew it, but they were let in on the secret. And so then in Iron Flame, what happens is for a lot of the book there's just a singular plot that we're kind of following. So during the first part of the book, it's a lot of Violet researching the wards. If there's something wrong with the wards, something could be wrong with the wards. Brennan, his little encampment don't have any wards. So like, how do we make new wards? Because we are going to need to protect that encampment and like protect the revolution. But we're also at school in our second year learning things that are happening here. And I feel like the school setting, as much as like there were things there that I appreciated, I think there was like a teacher there named Varish, who was like the torturer man, and he was doing the absolute fucking most. Like, he was doing too much. There's a lot of squad bonding moments in particular because they are forced to work with people outside of just like the writers. So there's like a scene where they're dropped in the forest, and they've taken this new elixir to like cut off the connection to their dragons, and they have to work with the scribe and the infantry people. And I think that was really there to remind people that like, yes, this is a war college where the dragon riders are dying constantly, but like there are other students. Like, the entire army is not just out here flying around on dragons, which is a little bit ridiculous, because then there are times where, I mean, it makes sense that the flyers, I mean, not the flyers, don't let me assault them, but the riders would have to learn how to do like hand-to-hand ground combat, and like if something happens to their dragon. But I do think it was like a little ridiculous that you have the infantry, and then like, okay, well, if we take out the dragon, like take out the dragon class, and so like you guys go learn hand-to-hand combat or whatever. So there was that. So like there is, I think, important scenes that are happening at the school in the first part of this book. I just personally felt that that was sort of like the biggest mistake, because as the reader, we know that there's so much more happening in this world than is happening at the school. Like, the school is foolish, and everything that's happening at the school is like treated as a like second year. Everything is classified. Nobody ever even would think to know what would happen during your second year. Every class that you take is like classified information. Like, there was too much classified information in this part of the book for me. And then there's also the situation where we know that Dana is a mind reader, and Violet, in addition to like never seeing Xaden, but Violet now knows a ton of stuff about the outside world that would like get Xaden killed, could get her friend killed. She is researching things that are apparently could also get you killed. Just like looking into the wards is a punishable of like, it's weird. So we have like that threat looming over us. Then we have this new guy, Varish, who is out here. It's like vice chancellor of the school, torturing people. He's like really interested in torturing Violet, alongside killing off members of her squad one by one in just like ridiculous ways. So like there's all of that happening at the school, which is foolish. I think the only good thing that happens at the school in this first part of the book are the two interrogation scenes. So one of them is like during a class where her entire squad is like tricked and like captured in the middle of the night, which is part of the course. And then they are each given like a silly secret, like the key is here. And then they are forced, again, severed the bond with their dragon, or try to. Violet remembers the smell of the elixir, so she tells everyone not to drink it, so they still have access to their signets. And then, so like that was a really good sequence. And then later on, as like a punishment, because during this whole time, Andarna is, which again, not how you pronounce that name, I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, but the golden dragon that Violet has, or used to be golden at the beginning of this book, she ain't golden no more. She goes to a metamorphosis, but, or whatever it is that reptiles do. Anyway, are dragons reptiles? I feel like they're reptiles. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They're not mammals. I know that. Anyway, so her formerly golden dragon is like in this sleep state, so she can go through this metamorphosis. She's over there hibernating. But Varish is like, I want you to bring this dragon to class. And she's just like never bringing this dragon to class. She ain't doing all that. There's a scene in the beginning of this book, not at the beginning, it's kind of like in the middle of the first part, where there's like an attack where Xaden is stationed, because again, this man graduated, he's in the army now. And so Violet and her black dragon, they fly off to go meet Xaden and his dragon, because, you know, they're worried about them, or really the dragon is worried about his mate, but they he can't just leave Violet, so they both run out of class. And so like there's some things that are happening that are like, ooh, what's happening in the world? What's happening? Ooh, we're kind of getting glimpses and scenes outside of the school, because Violet and Xaden's dragons are mated. She has to be with him every couple of weeks, but also their mating schedule, it's sad. Like the dragon's mating schedule is often interrupted by the fact that, one, Violet is just, I don't want to say misbehaving, but she is the protagonist of the story. Can I talk? She's the protagonist of this story. And as such, she is constantly doing things that are putting her in opposition to the things that are happening at the school where she's like trying to get to the bottom of things. And so like they're butting heads. Then she can't bring the golden dragon to flying class because she is asleep, which I think is weird that like none of the writers seem to like it's two parts, I think. One, the dragons are very secretive as a society, which okay, I think it's weird to name the series after the dragons and their council. We know nothing about them. But I think it's even more weird that the dragon writers seem to have like no kind of understanding of what the dragons do. Like for the dragons to trust these humans so much to the point where they're bonded to a human and it allows the human to channel some of the dragon magic. And I guess in some ways it's like the only way that the dragon magic can physically manifest. Like I don't think that Taryn can just hail down lightning. I don't think that Zayden's dragon could just start whipping up shadows. Like there's some like physical manifestation to the dragon magic that require a human, which I think is a weird evolutionary process, but okay. Who am I? I'm not a biologist. But for all of that to be true, and for the dragons and the humans to be, you know, they have to work together to even establish the wards as like bigger than they are. I think that the dragons inherently make a ward because later on in the second part of the book, I already said there's spoilers, but you know, spoilers, a large riot, I think that's a collection of dragons, if I'm remembering correctly, a large riot of the dragons leave Biscayeth, leave the war college, leave the Vale where they usually hatch these dragons to go be with the revolution because their humans go with them. And so when they start hatching or laying eggs in the revolutionary camp, there's like also like some minor warding happens like around the dragon egg, but it's not like extensive. So the humans are required to extend the natural bounds of what is it's very, I think it's a little too complicated, but again, like all that is to say that it's very weird to me that like Violet can't just ever say my she's asleep. Like Taryn is like very adamant about the fact that like humans can't know, they can't know this, they can't know. It's just like, why though? Like I don't understand like what the dragons gain by keeping it a secret. And it just felt like it just felt like a convenience to continue to have Violet in opposition to this human, to the point where Taryn almost murders the man. Like he attacks the man's dragon to the point where it's like bleeding and he's about to like rip out the dragon's throat. And Violet is just like, and if anything, that just like makes the man hate her more. So that the second time she's interrogated, it's entirely too much. So she runs off to go see Zayden after she's worried. She gets like a battle brief that like he was attacked or whatever. And so after she runs away and comes back, she's like held hostage. She's like, you are a deserter. We're punishing you. We're bringing in fucking Dane to start reading her mind. And Dane has like, at the beginning, like in the first interrogation, he's like, I'm not doing this. And then in the second interrogation, he was just like, sure, I'm going to do it now. Like, I'm just going to read your mind. And it's during this where she just like reveals everything. She's like, if you're going to know, you're going to touch me, I'm going to make you see everything. I'm going to make you watch Liam die. I'm going to make you watch the wyverns. I'm going to make you do all of these things. And it was just a little bit too unserious for me personally. And then not too long after this moment is when we start to get part 2. So this moment ends eventually with the murder of Varish. Like Varish is killed. And at this point, it's very clear that Violet cannot stay at the war college. She's going to have to leave. But she also feels that it's not, at this point, we spent 300 pages of her keeping these secrets from her friends, slowly bringing them in, but also still very much worried about them getting in trouble with her. I think there was like 200 pages of her being worried that she was gonna, you know, get her friends in trouble, and then 100 pages of her like they're working together. They're all trying to figure out how to make the wards work, how to expand them, how to create them, all of that lovely stuff. And so part 1 ends with the death of Varish and the students at Basgaiath, the cadets, learning about the truth, because simultaneously Zayden has been dropping wyvern carcasses all across the continent. He's just been like dropping them in the middle of cities, at outposts. Like he's gonna let the people of the continent know, like this is true. This is, you can't hide it no more, right? Like we are going to finally confront this. And so they leave with a bunch of the cadets, like half of the cadets. I think like everyone in Violet's wing leaves. Like they're the only wing to like stay intact, but they collect a lot of people from like both like the third year and the second years and the first years. Like everyone is, if you can ride your dragon, we can ride out to the rebellion. So then part 2 is a lot of the revolution. And to me, as much as there were elements in that first part of the book that I personally found entertaining, which I also feel like we should talk about. So many people that I watched read this book, because I read this, like I said, I listened to it, the audio, and you couldn't avoid this book last week. It was literally everywhere. And everybody in Erin's Discord for her patrons was reading this. It was like an unofficial group buddy read. And I wouldn't say, like, yes, I was flying through because I was listening at 3 times speed to the audiobook, and they were all reading it physically or ebook version, at least for the first couple of days. And they were not liking the book. Okay, like they were, no one liked it. Like, I feel like that's the other elephant in the room, is that so many people I watched reading this book did not have a good time, were not feeling it, were not happy with the beginning of the book. And again, to me, this isn't a good book. I would never go out of my way to recommend this to anybody, except, again, maybe someone who was like trying to get into fantasy because I think it's approachable. But is it good? I don't know. It's a starting point if nothing else. Like if you haven't read a book since, I don't know, you were forced to read a book in high school or something, then this is probably a pretty safe place for you to start and to like see if you want to continue on in this genre or whatever. But part 2, we are with the rebellion. We are seeing the revolution happening, and we are also seeing them attempting still to get these wards to work properly, to figure out how we can resurrect these things. We also have a situation where they are trying to negotiate for this thing that'll help them create weapons that is being held by this ruling person. It's also in part 2 that we see the Griffin riders make a return. And I have to say that the dragons in this book were dragoning, and I need the Griffins to step it up. I feel like the Griffins were not pulling their weight once they became part of the story, but I did appreciate how this all came to be. I appreciated getting to see the dragon riders and the Griffin flyers having to work together. And mostly because this is like, because so much of the first part of the book is, we're still seeing them in class, seeing the propaganda of the ruling empire that they are a part of. And so in part 2, when they're forced to confront and like work alongside the Griffin flyers, it's just that like, it just seems so silly. Like it seems so silly for you to like act superior to them just because like the dragons don't really like Griffins. Like that's really what it feels like. It feels like all the dragons just hate Griffins for no discernible reason, and because the dragons are linked to their humans, like the humans are like aware that the dragons don't fuck with them, and so they don't fuck with them, and they also feel like we're superior because we have to survive all of this harshness. And it's just like the flyers are kind of like, you guys are stupid. Like I feel like the flyers are so many of the people who ride Fourth Wing and are like, you guys are fucking dumb. Like, what do you mean you kill each other? Like, what do you mean like you just might die? Like, what do you mean? Like, if we don't bond with a Griffin, we just like get over it. Like we swim back and we just take a different job. Like you guys are fucking weirdos. And so I appreciated having them there to like kind of call BS on the dragon riders. But also I actually like Kat. So many people did not like this woman. It is revealed that she and Xaden had a former relationship situation. And while I don't like love her as a character, I also just did not hate her. I thought she was doing the most a lot of the time. But she is pretty much a standard like Monty character. It's just a woman who is ambitious and she is trying to just like use everything at her disposal to get what she wants. She's from a family that obviously does not respect her, that does not want her. Well, let me say doesn't want her, doesn't respect her, but it's like it's very clear that she alone is not going to be able to inherit the power that she wants to be able to inherit. And at the time, Xaden was the key to, getting that power that she wanted. And I don't think that like, was it, low and underhanded for her to, say things that she was saying to Violet? Absolutely. Was it, low and dirty of her to enhance and manipulate Violet's emotions? Sure, it was. But it was entertaining. Like, I think that she was really making the book entertaining in a way that for me worked. So I appreciated the flyers overall, but I really appreciated her addition to the book. Now, we're gonna talk about this ending. So as we're seeing everything is happening, it was kind of a shock to the people who went and left to the revolution that the war college, the empire at large, did not immediately come after them. They just kind of let them go. And not only did they let them go, then we get to see, other riders fly in after. So it's like we already have these cadets, hundreds of cadets that have left the college and are now here, robbing the empire of these future riders. But then current riders in the empire also fly and join the revolution because the people, the powers that be, have been going to the outposts and saying, look, this is what happened, just leave now and we won't execute you, but y'all are still, you're traitors and you're stupid, but you can just leave now, and we'd rather have you leave than have you just like thinking like, oh, I should join them, and then we're shit out of luck. So everyone is there. We're kind of recreating the war college in the revolution, but with slightly less propaganda, or at least propaganda against the people who are trying to flee the actual threat of this entire series, the the soul sucking creature, the vermin, the venom. They're trying to flee the venom and the wyverns. So that's why we have the Griffin Flyers here. Regular people from outside, technically, I think the empire that we're reading about. So we're seeing them, recreate the war college, trying to figure it out, trying to work the Griffin Flyers into the wings of the dragons, and like having them all work together as like one cohesive unit. Can I speak? Unit. Smart. Love that. And then Mama shows up. Mama Sorrendale, because it's a Dane's dad who can like see the future battles. And so he's seeing a future battle with the venom and the wyverns, and he's seeing that they are not going to win. They're not going to win because the dragons, the riot of people who have showed up to join the revolution, are not present. And so they have information that the wyverns and the venom are amassing at this one location on like the western border, let's say. And it's like weekend, and they're going to send everybody there, but they're going to lose this battle to the venom and the wyvern because they've lost all these riders. So they show up appealing to the rebellion to come help us out one last time. And the revolution is not really amenable to that, because from their position, it's like, we've watched you just let regular people die. You have not let in people who are being attacked by the wyverns outside of our wards and our border. So for us to drop everything to come help you would be counterintuitive to the revolutions that we are looking to run. And so they just are like, we're not going to show up. Then, through a series of other conversations and other revelations, Violet believes that, one, because the marked ones are Dane's daddy, I don't know why I call him Dean, but Dane's daddy can't see the marked ones. So that's one thing. So that's probably why he didn't see them showing up to help, because there's more than 3 marked ones in Violet's riot. But also that it doesn't make any sense for the venom and the wyverns to just stop at that one outpost. So it's like there's nothing there really for them. And that, but if they take out those wards, then they just like constrict back to the natural bounds of the wards, and that is the war college. That is where the dragons are hatching. Is where the there's a lot of magic there. And so if they were able to take out that, maybe something's going to happen to the war college. And so they're just like, let's show up at the war college. So they go to the war college, and what do you know? The only person still there is Violet's mommy. And Violet's mommy is like, look, you guys are wrong. You need to go help the other guy. And Violet is like, look, let's say we are wrong. But if it's just you here and we're right, then the college is going to fall. Like, they are going to be able to do it. And so they decide that the revolution is going to stay at the war college. They're going to attack from there, and they are going to make sure that the wards don't fall there. And in that process, what do you know? The wards fall. The wards fall because who's back? Jack Barlow. Now, Jack Barlow's been back for most of this book. He's kind of revealed to be back in part 1. So we see him while they're still at college together. I thought it was a little bit ridiculous that he was brought back from the dead. Not because I didn't think that listen, I think that he actually was dead. You can tell me that he wasn't, that they did some like supernatural healing and bullshit, but it's like an entire mountain fell on him. That man was dead. Like, he was in the grave. You can tell me that he wasn't. Rebecca can come up with excuses. Like, he was in the grave. I'm sorry. It just don't make no sense. Like, otherwise, like, not only was he in the grave, but it's also revealed. I think that the actual best sequence, is it the actual best sequence? For me, in terms of like enjoyment, watching this man murder his own dragon. I'm sorry, he kind of ate with that one. Like, he just murdered a dragon in cold blood and then knocked over the ward stone, breaking the wards, letting the wards fall. So the venom and the wyvern are going to come in. But also, as I should note, Jack Barlow is also a venom. He's a venom. He says, actually, I'm a venom now, bitch. Being a venom is more powerful than being a dragon rider, which, okay, sure. Now, some people are saying this doesn't make any sense because, like, he was a venom inside the wards, which I guess that shouldn't be allowed to happen, but I don't make the rules here. And then some people thought that it was weird that he was able to murder his dragon and not die. And I guess that was my understanding. I guess I never really thought about that. I mean, I guess because at the... I guess like there is that like viral sound of it's like a rider without his dragon is dead and a dragon without his rider is fine. I don't know. But to me, maybe it was actually established that like riders and dragons are linked. But at the beginning of the book, or in part 1, you know, when Taryn is out here attacking Varys' dragon, it's not like Varys is going to die because the dragon is dead. He just wouldn't be able to be the vice chancellor because you have to be a rider to be in his position. And so Terrence was like, if I just kill your dragon, you're not a rider anymore. Like, it was like, I'm going to kill your dragon and then you will also die. Now, I think that Xaden and Violet and Taryn and Scale, like, they're all mixed and mingled in a weird way. But I always thought that was because their dragons were mated and that just like made things a little bit more complicated and like enmeshed and weirdness. So doesn't matter to me, but Jack kills his dragon. Okay, the dragon is gone. Dragon is dead. The wards are down, and they are all struggling to figure out a way to keep the venom and the wyverns out and like not die, even though they are greatly, greatly outnumbered, while also repairing the ward stone. So Violet sends her brother down to repair the ward stone. She's trying to figure out how they're even going to get the wards back up. She kind of thinks she has an idea. She thinks she knows. And it's during this process where the war stone is getting mended. People are, you know, they're not dying. Like, I think the only major casualty so far of this battle is Sawyer loses a leg. So it's pretty unclear that he's going to be able to be a writer, but it's fine because this entire book he's going to be having this like flirtationship with the scribe. So like maybe he's just going to go be a scribe, or he's going to like do something else for the revolution. But he's also already bonded to a dragon. And he already has a signet, so like I'm pretty sure he does. So it's just like, I don't know if he's actually going to leave, but we'll see. Maybe he will be a writer. It's like, why not? Like, literally every bone in fucking Violet's body is torn out of place during this book. Ligaments scraped. Like, she rides, so like, why can't you ride with only one leg? That like. I think he'll figure it out, and he'll be fine on the back of his dragon once again. Like, it'll just be a little bit different. It might be a little bit harder for him, but he's gonna make it work. Obviously, he might not be able to do no rolling, running, dismount, and charge into battle. He might be permanently stuck on that saddle, but it's just like it's fine. It's fine. Like, Rebecca Yarros will make it work. But that's like the major casualty of this fight. And then the war stone is repaired. We're seeing Violet trying to bring it back, and this is probably the part of the book that I didn't like the most, because it was giving that Violet was going to kill herself to bring the wards. And it's like, obviously she's not. And so it just felt like this book needed a suicide warning for this, because it was really giving suicide. It wasn't giving, like, I guess like sacrifice is very, thematically different, but it was giving fucking suicide. And then we have to watch as Violet's mother forcibly like dislocates her daughter's hand, because in order to, imbue the ward stone, she has to like have physical contact with it. And so we have to see Violet's mother kick her daughter's her arm out of the socket so she can break the contact and like have her arm fall away or whatever, just so which is like, again, like the 17th time in this book that Violet's arm is violently dislocated from her body, whatever. And then her mother instead forces Violet to watch as one of the other writers siphons out her magic, and I'm pretty sure the magic of her dragon, because I don't understand, like, I understand that her mother is like older and like more powerful, but I also feel like, so what was her name, Selena, I feel like she also siphoned the dragon's magic through her mother into the ward stone to finish it. But it's just like, I don't know, I don't know, because I don't even think, like, because the point of Violet doing it was that, like, Violet also was not going to have enough. Like, she was also not going to have enough power in order to do it alone. And I guess that she got it like some of the way there, but she was also talking as like her friends would still have to do a little bit. So how this wardstone finally lit back up does matter to me, but it lights back up. The wyvern who are in the veil or inside the wards fall from the sky, making them a lot easier to kill. The other Venin realize what is happening and are able to kind of like flee and escape, make a run for it. And then we get the reveal. I'm pretty sure we get this reveal that like Xaden has like killed the leader of the Venin off page and is a Venin himself because he needed the extra magic and he was just like, I can't pull from my dragon, so I'm going to pull it from the earth. And so the crazy twist ending that everyone had been telling me was happening. I mean, I finished the book, the first, in the Discord, but like the people in the Discord actually use TikTok. And so like they were telling me that the ending had like a twist, or they had heard that the ending was like wild and crazy. I mean, to me, like, I feel like it's not so much of a twist as like a conversation starter, because as far as we know, Venin just go mad eventually, and they just want power. And we kind of see this. I mean, Jack was always an asshole, and wanted to be the best and the brightest or whatever. So like, he could have been in Venin the entire time that we've known him. But it's not so much that they are jackasses. It's just that like they are constantly craving to devour power. Like it's giving, they don't really have any thoughts or motivations outside of that. It's giving kind of as like the stereotypical zombie where they just want to eat brains, and they are mindless beings. And so I feel like him being a Venin is okay, sure, but we also learned in this book that he's an intrinsic. And I thought that if you were an intrinsic, then you just were immediately killed on sight. Like, they didn't really wait for you to start hearing voices. They just kind of murdered you. Like, they just kind of snapped your neck with a quickness. Because I feel like that's what happened in Fourth Wing. That little boy, his signet manifested, and he started screaming in the dining hall, and everyone was horrified, and they just snapped his neck. And I feel like Xaden has been allowed to live a little bit too long, in my opinion. And I understand that's a wild statement, but it's like, yeah, not only did you bond with your grandfather's dragon, which apparently is kind of like a big no-no. Like, you're not really supposed to, like, you can do that, but that already gives you like an increased chance of going insane, which, again, not like the most PC way of saying, but like, you're already at an increased risk of like being a danger to yourself and others. Okay. And then he gets a second signet where he is, again, at a greater risk of going off the wall. And then we have him at the end of the book becoming a Venin. And I don't really care to see a cure for the Venin. Like, I really don't care to see that as a plot line. And so it's like there are three things stacked against Xaden that we should be murdering him. Like, we should be snapping his neck expeditiously. And so I don't think we're going to, because, Rebecca Yarros is just not the kind of author I feel that is going to introduce another love interest. I kind of feel like we're stuck with the person that we're with. But if it were up to me, I would have snapped his neck at the end of this book. So that's, kind of a play-by-play. I do still feel that Rebecca Yarros is the child of Tracy Wolff. And I say this because I do feel like this series is following the Crave blueprint still. I said that about Fourth Wing. I say it about this one. Now, it's weird because I don't even think that Tracy Wolff was able to fully recreate it because Starbringer was so bad. But I think that there's a compulsively readable quality to the Crave series that is sort of present in the Iron Flame Fourth Wing world for me, even though other readers who enjoyed Fourth Wing more are not really enjoying this one. at least an Aaron server. So again, your mileage may vary. I think that the ending of this book does that. The War College, even if we're still there, can never function the same way. I think that it makes sense for everyone to reconvene there, even if I would like to not be there, simply because I think that reconvening there doesn't mean necessarily following it the way that it once was. But I also think that it'd be very silly for this revolution that was all about setting up the wards again, going back to the place where they can never set up wards. Like, it would be impossible for them to do that based on how it's actually functioning. And I feel like I would much rather have them be in a location that I don't have to like worry about them trying to do stupid shit. And I would also like to see a book where they're not trying to figure out how to unvenify venenify, which is even uglier to say. I would much rather not see that storyline happen, and I would much rather see them just like snap Zayden's neck or put him in exile and just go full dual perspective. I'm gonna give it 2 stars, which is wild because I have this whole physical copy in my hand, which it was kind of cute. They gave me I got a bookmark with it and a sticker. It says Dragon Rider. So it came with some little goodies to make my obscenely expensive purchase worth it. And I will continue with the series. Now, will I buy the next one in the series? I don't know. If I do buy it, I know not to pre-order on Amazon because Amazon and Walmart and Costco seem to be the people, and Target maybe, were the people who are out here getting fucked up copies, and I don't want to risk it. But I will continue. I will, give you guys an update. I think the teacher saying it's going to be a more typical release. So I'm not expecting another book until like maybe 2025, like winter. So like January, March or something, which is fine because I do think that this book did not need to come out this year. I do think that not only just to solve some of the printing issues that are happening with this and the holiday edition of Fourth Wing, which also had some misprints. But I didn't buy that, so I wasn't really as invested. But maybe to like solve some of the printing issues, like I'm okay with this break, and to solve, I don't want to say that this book felt rushed, but I do think that most books aren't worse because they took longer to come out. Now, maybe I will say something different when we finally get Children of Blood and Bone 3. Anarchy and Anguish, or Anguish and Anarchy. I can't remember how that's going. Next year for my birthday. But again, like I don't find the books are worse because they took longer to come out. Now, you can be more let down because you waited so long, but the book itself might not be actually physically worse. And I think that Iron Flame could have been a little bit better if we had waited, more than 6 months between these books coming out. Particularly when Entangled also couldn't keep Fourth Wing in stock. I think it was weird that they had this many issues when the first book already let you know that your strategy of this limited print run and then going, come on now. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for bearing with me for the past almost hour. It is what it is. But if you've let me, I might only give this 2 stars, but it has 5 out of 5 dragons. Okay, the dragons were dragoning. I'm sorry, like the dragons were again doing a lot of the heavy lifting in this book. The book simply could not exist without the dragons. So shout out to them. Let me know your star rating if you've read it, if you're going to read it, in the comments below, and your dragon rating. Do you agree with me that the dragons are dragoning? Because I've seen some reading vlogs where the people are not enjoying the dragons, and to me, the dragons were like the saving grace. They were the saving grace of everything bad that was happening in this book. So shout out to them. Shout out to y'all, and I'll see you guys again soon in another video. But until then, and until next time,